Congratulations, my friend. You have made it to the future. Modern science has finally caught up to the point where we can now consume perfectly optimized powders that contain everything that you need for a meal. Meal replacements are gaining popularity. The brands that have emerged to meet this demand promise that you can fuel your active and busy lifestyle with a simple, healthy, and affordable, scoopable version of the food that we all need to rely on. But these meals that come in a bag might mean something very different for the future of our food. Today's episode is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. If you want to see exclusive content, support our channel and what we do, gain extra access to what goes on behind the scenes, there's a link down in the description. Now, the human interest to eliminate the need to eat food for our own sustenance is apparently something we've dreamed about for a literal century. Since at least the 1920s, we have been trying to figure out a way to survive without having to eat, even though I would say that eating food is probably the best part of my day. Now, the attempts of the past might be a little comical, and we haven't quite manifested the Star Trek or Jetsons versions of this idea, but meal replacements have always captured some sort of imagination in us humans. Meal replacement drinks were kind of the initial frontier for this kind of technology, but until recently, they were a fairly niche thing, often used specifically to target malnutrition and weight loss. Then in 2013, Soylent entered the scene and everything changed. Soylent was the first majorly popular drink of its kind, advertised as perfectly balanced, giving the body nothing more, nothing less than it needs. It heralded a whole new era of nutritionally complete drinks that could replace any meal and maybe even do a better job at it. Today, there is no end to brands with similar advertising. A popular one more recently that you might have seen on YouTube is Huel. Now, there is a bunch of videos on YouTube where people are eating exclusively Huel for their meals as like a test, and apparently most people kind of enjoyed it, but they all do go back to eating regular food after the challenge is over. In most cases, it just seems like the desire to eat real food overpowers the desire to suck it through a tube, which makes me think that the whole idea of just eating food isn't as lame as we thought it was after all. Now, today, Huel also makes stuff that resembles more like real food. The idea is the same, you just add water, but in this case, you can eat it with a spoon instead of just chugging it out of a cup or sucking it out of a straw. Now, of course, we understand that meal replacements are not actually designed to replace all of your meals, but the marketing of these products and the claims that they make present a pretty nice picture. The idea here is that by consuming your food in this powdered form, you save time, money, your health, and the planet all at once. This is food for busy people, individuals who need to get the calories while they're on the go, and for people who want to save money, because you can get meals this way for less than $2 a pop in some cases. And apparently, you're still meeting 100% of your nutritional needs. Sounds pretty good, right? Gone are the days where you actually have to think about your meals, or even, God forbid, cook them. Now, of course, there are some circumstances where these products are incredible for athletes that need a quick source of protein, or for people with disabilities or mental illness or something, but that's not who this product is marketed towards. It's the perfect gimmick for the overburdened but increasingly health-conscious millennial. Convenience without having to sacrifice your health or values.
God damn, Jimmy. This is some serious gourmet shit.
But of course, it's not quite that simple, is it? No, it never is anymore. It's all so complicated. Now, obviously, some of these claims are true. Powdered food is definitely faster to prepare and consume than, say, a full steak dinner. And it even beats waiting in line at Tim Hortons for a BLT that is inevitably going to suck ass.
Most of the time, I'm tasting coffee. Yuck. It's perfect.
As for price, some of the most popular brands cost less than $5 a meal, which is way less than almost anything else you can prepare nowadays. Of course, how much you save depends on what you eat normally, but feasibly, you could save a lot of money by switching to these meal replacements. Now, we have talked about supplements in the past, and we don't want to repeat ourselves too much here, so the short of it is that we can probably all agree that things like Huel, Ample, or Soylent, while technically perfectly nutritious in all the ways that it's advertised, can't really compare to a balanced meal made of whole foods and prepared with a variety of quality ingredients. But there is some serious weight behind this industry that we can't ignore. Sorry to interrupt here, but I just wanted to tell you about something pretty interesting we have going on. So when we were coming up with ideas for this time of the year, we really wanted to make an episode about the rising trend of sobriety. In combination with that, we had another episode all about non-alcoholic beers and how that trend has also exploded. But sadly, they probably just wouldn't perform very well here on YouTube. So we've uploaded them on Patreon exclusively. Now, this isn't necessarily something that we're going to guarantee on Patreon every single month as an exclusive video, but we have another episode about Duolingo that sadly probably wouldn't perform either, so we're going to be releasing that one later in the year as well. And there's lots of other types of content that we just don't feel is right for this channel that end up there as well. So if you want to support this channel, what we do, and gain access to some more content, maybe check that out down through the link in the description. So when we initially researched this video, my gut instinct was like, that. I'm not going to eat a powdered bowl of curry, all right? Real food into the grave, baby. And that's largely still my perspective, but I will say that the argument for this trend is disturbingly persuasive. While it might be weird to imagine the evolution of food from farm to factory to dusty composite to packaged meal that arrives on your doorstep, you can see that from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. The food becomes shelf stable, which immediately increases the viability of the product from a sales standpoint, right? You've created your mac and cheese dust that someone can bring anywhere they please and just add water when it's time to eat. You can order ingredients en masse at the peak of their affordability, at the peak of their ripeness, and then you can process them into their nutritional elements to be packaged in an airtight container. Because of your ability to order in bulk and then plan for a full year of production all in one go, you can cut costs in a crazy number of ways that other companies cannot. You're basically flipping the whole food system on its head, right? And the efficiencies just kind of keep going from there. Rather than individual people going to grocery stores to buy their ingredients for one meal, the meal has already been delivered to their house. It's in a bag just ready for them to scoop and go. Not only does that save individuals time and effort, but it also cuts back on food waste. Instead of tossing the half of a cabbage or whatever because you didn't get around to using the rest of it in the meal you wanted to prepare, Huel or one of these companies is able to utilize 100% of that vegetable. Instead of food products being shipped across the country to all these different grocery stores, it's brought directly to the site of its consumption. From a planet standpoint, food is one of the biggest sources of our environmental issues, and this could be a huge deal. Cutting back on all those inefficiencies to maximize the functional use of the food that we are growing just makes sense. Theoretically, companies like this could be using imperfect foods that often go to waste or aren't able to be sold at grocery stores. They could use vegetables that grow better, but maybe people don't know the name of, so they could, diversify the number of things that are growing in our industrialized food system. And there is even an example of this kind of happening with Huel. They're entirely plant-based. And my suspicion is that this is likely to do with cost, not because they're trying to appease the vegans. It is probably more money to process proteins from animal meat and dairy than it is from other plant-based stuff like beans, legumes, and whatnot. So it's pretty rosy right now, right? And listen, we have done some pretty crazy, weird stuff to get our food system to feed the billions of people that are here on Earth right now. Maybe not to the highest standards for everyone, admittedly, but this level of systemization hasn't really been done before. And this would be like a whole new frontier, a whole new level of how we feed people. Now, just for a second, I'm gonna get a little theoretical here. We're gonna get a little, imagining the world from a particular perspective. The perspective of the world where meal replacements become a lot more common. In this model, food is treated like the internet. We don't go out and lay our own wire to find a good connection. We pay for the privilege and the convenience of having the internet brought into our homes. Do you have really any clue how that internet reached your laptop? Not really. And that's possibly the biggest red flag that I have about the whole meal replacement thing, is what it does to our relationship with the food that we eat. It really seems to me that much of the brokenness that we are witnessing in our food system today and the way that we eat is linked to a total disconnection that we have from our food. We have made an episode about Uber Eats, which talks about this a little bit. The fact that not many people actually prepare their own food anymore, instead being willing to pay way more money to have it delivered and then eat it cold alone on their couch watching YouTube videos. Lunchables are now being sold as real food in school cafeterias across the US, and we made a whole video about it on here as well if you want to be sad about that too. And here's the thing, this is just the norm for many of us. We have no idea what is in our food, where it came from, how it was processed, and how it's affecting us down the road. We just kind of pop it in our mouths and hope that it doesn't taste like ass or kill us in 20 years. And we really don't know where meal replacements are going to land on either side of this line. Now, supposedly Huel does combat this to a degree by at least trying to inform people about farming practices and by making a healthy concoction. But ultimately, meal replacements are kind of just another way of further abstracting our food. There's a concern here that while these shakes can get us away from the worst kinds of food, they're also kind of a crutch that keeps us from actually learning how to cook food for ourselves. Because in an ideal world, this is the situation. Every individual can consume local, sustainably grown, whole foods that were prepared with love, and in the process, they got to learn how to sustain their body. Bonus points, they also got to do this with friends and family, eating together at the dinner table like a Hallmark card. I know it doesn't sound real, but that is what, we were kind of supposed to do. But it's not even a joke. Like, food is such an integral part of our culture and our communities, and you're just not gonna have the same bonding experience chugging your Huels around a fire. But this is kind of Huel's argument as well. Not many people can afford that, so let's just drink our food instead. And the problem is, it's a valid point. Not many people live in the fairy tale that I just described. In theory, these meal replacements do make healthier, more sustainable living accessible to a larger range of people. But let's not kid ourselves into thinking that this is anything more than a Band-Aid solution. Band-Aids are certainly helpful, but we gotta keep making the big goal the one in mind. Making nutritious food more accessible to everybody. Huel, I will say, of all the meal replacement companies, seems to be not the worst. They are pretty transparent with their practices on their website as far as we can tell when it comes to processing and manufacturing their products. They have in-depth explanations about most, if not all, of their ingredients, including what types of sweeteners and plant-based proteins they use. You can read about how they mix and package their products, the nutritional information, and how they process the food on their website. And Huel is a certified B Corporation, and you can read their sustainable nutrition report, which has an entire section dedicated to their environmental impact, which does sadly focus a little too much on their carbon footprint. And they have released a modern slavery statement outlining how they ensure fair working conditions from their supply chain to their internal policies. It is all good. It is a lot of marketing. You gotta be aware that this is their words also, trying to look good. But sadly, Huel is kind of the exception in this market. Not all meal replacements are created equally, and you can bet that some of these companies use all the same sketchy stuff that their solid food competitors are doing too. The scary thing about most of these companies is that we understand just so little about what goes on behind the scenes, and we just have to kind of trust that they've made all the right choices regarding our health, which they probably haven't, if we're being honest. Now, of course, science and health recommendations are constantly evolving and aren't the same from person to person. I probably don't need to tell you how much raging debate there is about the various ingredients and right balance and diet that you should be doing. Just take a look in the comments of any health-related video on YouTube and you will find that, wow, shocker, people have opinions. And this is great, honestly, not just from like an algorithmic standpoint as a YouTube creator, but it also means that people are thinking about the food that they're consuming and trying to figure out what is best for them, which is the right thing to do. The problem with these kinds of products is that it kind of stops that debate. A huge point for their existence is to take the thinking out of our food. And believe me, I wish that we could just trust the big corporations, you know, to just do the right thing by us, the consumer, right? It would save a lot of hassle. But in the end, each of us is ultimately responsible for our own health. A meal replacement could be a very handy tool if you use it intentionally. I just worry that its very existence encourages us not to consume intentionally. So let us know what you think of meal replacements down in the comments below. As usual, please make them opinionated and typed in all caps for my sake. And if you did like this video, remember to like and subscribe, and you'll see another one every single week.